At 11:04 p.m. on March 1, 2026, the watch officer in the Network Operations Center at Naval Support Activity Bahrain noted a single irregular entry in the base perimeter sensor log. Sector 7 of the eastern fence line, a stretch of chain link and concrete barrier running parallel to the King Faisal Highway, had registered a micro-vibration signature that lasted exactly 1.3 seconds before returning to baseline. The sensor itself was not military hardware. It was a commercial seismic monitoring unit, the kind used in construction sites across Manama to detect ground disturbance near foundations. It had been integrated into the base's secondary perimeter monitoring stack 18 months earlier as part of a low-cost infrastructure upgrade. It had never triggered before. Its alert threshold was set conservatively enough that the 1.3-second event logged as a Category C notification, bottom of the priority queue. The watch officer marked it reviewed and moved on. What the sensor had detected was not a person at the fence. It was not a vehicle. It was the vibration transmitted through 40 meters of compacted urban fill from the chassis of a surveillance relay device, a commercially available cellular signal amplifier that had been modified and buried in a drainage access channel running beneath the highway median 4 days earlier. The device had just activated. It was transmitting, and what it was transmitting was the precise GPS coordinates of the Naval Support Activity Bahrain communications tower, the 34-meter mast at the center of the installation that served as the primary uplink hub for U.S. Navy 5th Fleet Command and Control traffic across the entire Central Command area of operations. The device had been placed there by a maintenance contractor employed by the Bahraini Telecommunications Authority. He had held that position for 6 years. He had a security clearance issued by the Bahraini Ministry of Interior. He had a wife, 2 children, and an apartment in the Isa Town district. He also had a debt of approximately $40,000 US to a lending entity that did not formally exist, controlled by an intermediary who worked for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Intelligence Directorate and had been operating in the Gulf under commercial cover since 2021. The contractor did not know what the device would be used for. He had been told it was a network diagnostic tool for a private client. He had been paid $3,000 in cash. He had asked no further questions. At NSR Bahrain, designated the headquarters of U.S. Naval Forces Central Command and the operational home of the 5th Fleet, the evening of March 1, 2026, was by any measure already a compressed and exhausting operational environment. Operation Epic Fury had commenced at dawn on February 28th. For 3 days, the base had been running on maximum alert posture, with all non-essential personnel confined to hardened facilities, all command circuits operating at surge capacity, and every available asset in the region forward deployed or on immediate standby. Iranian ballistic missile strikes had already impacted the Jufair district twice in the preceding 72 hours, both times targeting the outer perimeter, both times partially intercepted by the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Battery, positioned at Muharraq, both times generating casualty reports that the Public Affairs Office was managing with careful and deliberate restraint. The base had taken damage. Not catastrophic damage, but real damage. A vehicle maintenance facility on the eastern compound had sustained a partial structural collapse from a warhead fragment during the first strike on February 28th. A fuel distribution point had been temporarily rendered inoperable. 3 service members had sustained non-critical injuries from secondary fragmentation. The infrastructure was stressed. The personnel were exhausted. And the intelligence picture, as of 11 p.m. on March 1st, was deteriorating. At 11:09 p.m., a National Security Agency signals collection asset operating over the northern Gulf intercepted a burst transmission from a known IRGC Aerospace Force operational frequency that had been inactive for 11 days. The transmission was encrypted. It was short, under 4 seconds. It contained a directional header string that the collection asset's automated processing engine flagged immediately as consistent with targeting data formatting used by IRGC ballistic missile units. The flag was routed to an NSA analyst on watch at Fort Meade within 90 seconds of interception. At 11:14 p.m., the analyst had decoded enough of the transmission's structural envelope to determine two things. First, the transmission had originated from a mobile ground station somewhere in Fars province, Iran. Second, the directional header was referencing a coordinate set that resolved, when corrected for the transmission's encoding offset, to within 200 meters of the NSA Bahrain communications tower. At 11:16 p.m., she was on a secure voice circuit to the 5th Fleet Watch officer in Bahrain. At 11:17 p.m., NSA Bahrain went to threat condition Delta. What followed in the next 23 minutes was a masterclass in the specific kind of controlled chaos that a military installation generates when it transitions from high alert to imminent attack posture in the middle of the night. Hardened shelters received personnel in pre-assigned order. The commanding general's operations staff relocated to the underground command node beneath the headquarters building. Every vehicle not mission essential was moved to dispersal positions. The base fire teams prepositioned. The medical facility began preparing for mass casualty reception. None of this was panic. All of it was practiced, drilled, executed with the mechanical efficiency of people who had rehearsed this scenario enough times that their hands moved faster than their thoughts. But there was a problem that no rehearsal had ever fully solved. The 5th Fleet's communications infrastructure, the tower, the uplink arrays, the hardened cable runs connecting them to the command node, was not fully redundant. The primary mast was above ground. It was 48 meters of steel and antenna hardware that could not be moved, could not be hardened beyond its existing blast deflectors, and could not be replaced on any timeline measured in hours. If the primary mast was rendered inoperable, the 5th Fleet's ability to coordinate air operations, relay targeting data to the strike group in the Gulf, and maintain encrypted voice communications with CENTCOM in Qatar would degrade by an estimated 63% until the backup satellite constellation could be brought to full operational load, a process that would take between 90 minutes and 4 hours, depending on atmospheric conditions. The IRGC Aerospace Force Intelligence Directorate had known this for 8 months. They had known it because the contractor who buried the relay device in the drainage channel had also, on a separate occasion 11 months earlier, accepted a payment to photograph the base's communications infrastructure during a routine access visit for a fiber optic maintenance job. He had not known what the photographs were for. He had been told they were for a telecommunications expansion study. He had taken 14 images on a phone that had been given to him for the purpose and returned immediately after. He had been paid $2,000. He had not asked questions. At NSA Bahrain, the intelligence cell chief, who had been handed the NSA intercept at 11:16 p.m., was doing the same calculation that the IRGC planners had done 8 months earlier. If the primary communications mast was the target, and the coordinate resolution left very little room for an alternative interpretation, then the incoming strike package was not designed to generate casualties. It was designed to blind the 5th Fleet at the precise moment that the carrier strike group in the northern Gulf was at maximum operational tempo. It was designed to sever the command and control architecture that coordinated the most intensive American air campaign in the region in 2 decades. It was a decapitation strike, not against personnel, against the nervous system of the entire operation. At 11:22 p.m., the intelligence cell chief made a recommendation that was approved by the 5th Fleet commander in under 90 seconds. Execute an emergency degraded mode transition of all critical command and control traffic to the backup satellite constellation immediately before any strike arrived, without waiting for confirmation of inbound missiles. Do not wait for the attack to begin. Assume it is already in flight. Accept the degraded capacity now on U.S. terms rather than have it imposed by an adversary's warhead. The transition began at 11:24 p.m. It was not clean. Degraded mode transitions of the Fifth Fleet's command architecture had been exercised 4 times in the preceding 18 months. None of those exercises had been conducted while the fleet was simultaneously managing an active air campaign involving over 200 strike sorties per day across 3 countries. The satellite constellation load balancing process generated 11 circuit conflicts in the first 3 minutes. 4 encrypted voice channels dropped and had to be re-established manually. The targeting data relay to the strike group in the northern Gulf experienced a 47-second interruption, during which 2 outbound strike package coordinates could not be confirmed as received. The duty communications officer worked through the conflicts with the specific, quiet intensity of someone who understands that the next thing they do matters more than anything they have done before in their career. Her hands did not shake. The circuits came back. The targeting data was reconfirmed. At 11:31 p.m., the THAAD battery at Muharraq registered first track acquisition on 3 inbound ballistic missile signatures rising from a launch point in Fars province. The trajectories were steep. The estimated impact point for all 3 resolved within 800 meters of Naval Support Activity Bahrain's central compound. Time to terminal phase, 11 minutes. At 11:33 p.m., a 4th launch was detected. Then a 5th. Then a 6th. The IRGC had committed a 6-missile salvo in a tight time-on-target package designed to overwhelm the terminal defense system by compressing the intercept timeline to the point where the engagement sequencing algorithm would run out of reaction time before it ran out of targets. The package had been calculated carefully. 6 simultaneous terminal threats against a single THAAD battery with a reload time measured in minutes was not a guarantee of penetration. It was a probability exercise, and the IRGC planners had assessed the probability as favorable. They had not accounted for USS The Sullivans. The Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer had been operating in a maritime patrol posture 12 nautical miles off the Bahraini coast since 0600 that morning. Tasked primarily with surface surveillance and theater ballistic missile defense support. Her SPY-1D radar had been tracking the airspace over the northern Gulf continuously for 17 hours. When the THAAD battery at Muharraq designated the first 3 inbound tracks at 11:31 p.m. and broadcast the track data on the Cooperative Engagement Network, USS. The Sullivans received the targeting solution 0.9 seconds after designation. Her tactical action officer initiated an SM-3 engagement sequence on tracks 1 and 2 at 11:32 p.m., while the THAAD battery retained primary engagement responsibility for tracks 3 through 6. What followed was a layered terminal defense engagement of a complexity that the after-action report would describe, with characteristic understatement, as executed under compressed timeline conditions. The SM-3 launches from USS The Sullivans lit the nighttime Gulf like a series of controlled explosions, each missile climbing at an angle so steep that crew members on the weather deck could track the plume by tilting their heads directly upward. The physics of a theater ballistic missile intercept at that range and altitude are not the physics of a conventional air defense engagement. The closure rates are measured in kilometers per second, the engagement windows in tenths of a second, the margin for error effectively 0. The tactical action officer had trained for this specific scenario in simulation more than 40 times. The simulation had never felt like this. The deck plates vibrated with each launch. The Combat Information Center smelled of overheated electronics and the sharp mineral scent of the air conditioning system working beyond its rated capacity. Track 1 was intercepted at 11:38 p.m. at an altitude of 94 kilometers. Track 2 was intercepted 11 seconds later. The debris footprint from both intercepts fell harmlessly into the Gulf. The THAAD battery at Muharraq engaged tracks 3 and 4 in the terminal phase at 11:39 p.m. Track 3 was a clean intercept. Track 4 generated a warhead fragmentation event at an altitude of 6.2 kilometers. high enough that the fragmentation pattern dispersed over a wide area without generating a concentrated ground impact, but low enough that debris rained across a 2-kilometer radius that included the outer fence line of NSA Bahrain's northern perimeter. The base registered multiple fragmentation impacts. A hardened vehicle storage facility near the north gate sustained damage to its roof structure. No personnel were in the building. 2 vehicles were rendered inoperable by fragment penetration of their engine compartments. The base fire team responded. Track 5 was intercepted by the THAAD battery at 11:40 p.m. in the lower terminal phase. The intercept was late enough that the debris impact point was inside the base perimeter, a parking area adjacent to the decommissioned South Gymnasium that had been cleared of vehicles as part of the pre-strike dispersal protocol. The blast and fragmentation from the warhead destroyed 6 vehicles and deformed a section of the perimeter blast wall. 3 service members monitoring the south perimeter from a protected position sustained non-penetrating fragmentation injuries from secondary debris impact. All 3 were ambulatory and reached the medical facility under their own power. Track 6 was the one that the after-action review would spend the most pages on. The 6th IRGC ballistic missile had been launched on a slightly depressed trajectory compared to the other 5. A deliberate deviation from the Salvo pattern, calculated to alter its terminal phase geometry enough to complicate the THAAD intercept solution after the battery had already committed to the primary engagement sequence. It worked. The THAAD battery's firing solution for Track 6 was degraded by the trajectory deviation. The intercept attempt at 11:40 p.m. generated a proximity detonation rather than a direct hit. The kill vehicle detonated within the lethal radius of the warhead, but failed to achieve a hard kill. The warhead continued on a ballistic path. The THAAD battery had no reload capacity in the engagement window. USS The Sullivans had 1 SM-3 round remaining in a viable intercept geometry. The tactical action officer authorized the engagement at 11:40 p.m. and 38 seconds. The SM-3 left its VLS cell at 11:40 p.m. and 41 seconds. The intercept occurred at 11:40 p.m. and 53 seconds, at an altitude of 3.1 kilometers, directly above the Gulf waters 800 meters southwest of the NSA Bahrain shoreline perimeter. The warhead was rendered inoperable. The debris pattern impacted the water. A small number of fragments reached the shoreline near the 5th Fleet Marina facility, damaging 2 moored utility craft and shattering a section of the waterfront walkway. The crew of USS The Sullivans did not celebrate. There was no sound in the CIC for approximately 4 seconds after the intercept confirmation registered on the tactical display. Then the tactical action officer reported the engagement complete to the 5th Fleet Watch officer. Then the duty team went back to tracking the airspace, because there was no indication, at that moment, that the Salvo was finished. Because in a conflict of this nature, there is never an indication that the Salvo is finished until it is, and sometimes not even then. The Salvo was finished. The IRGC had committed its allocated package. The launch vehicles had already displaced from their firing positions in Fars province and were moving on pre-planned evasion routes toward dispersal sites in the Zagros foothills. At 12:15 a.m., the 5th Fleet commander authorized a damage assessment and began the process of reconstituting the primary communications architecture. The backup satellite constellation had performed within its rated parameters. Command and control of Operation Epic Fury had been maintained without interruption throughout the engagement. The strike group in the northern Gulf had received continuous targeting updates. The air campaign had not paused by a single sortie. The communications mast was still standing. The IRGC had built their entire strike package around a targeting solution derived from a relay device buried under a highway median, a device that had transmitted the tower's GPS coordinates precisely, and whose data had been used to calculate a ballistic trajectory to within 200 meters of the intended aim point. The tower was still standing because 6 missiles had been launched, 6 intercepts had been attempted, and the 6th had been decided by a single SM-3 round, authorized in a 12-second window, by a tactical action officer aboard a destroyer that had been positioned in the Gulf for reasons entirely unrelated to the specific threat that materialized that night. At 1:45 a.m., Bahraini security forces acting on intelligence provided by the NSA signals exploitation of the intercepted transmission, cross-referenced against the contractor access logs for the drainage channel maintenance work, located and arrested the telecommunications contractor at his apartment in Isa Town. He was taken into custody without incident. His phone, which had been wiped, was recovered. His financial records, accessed through a Bahraini judicial order issued within the hour, confirmed 3 cash payments totaling $5,000 from an account registered to a freight forwarding company with no verifiable operations. The freight forwarding company dissolved its registration the following morning. The relay device was excavated from the drainage channel at 4:20 a.m. by a Naval Criminal Investigative Service technical team working under Bahraini Law Enforcement Authority. It was intact. Its transmission log confirmed a single activation event at 11:06 p.m. on March 1, 2026, 2 minutes before the NSA intercept, 8 minutes before the 5th Fleet went to threat condition Delta, 25 minutes before the first IRGC missile left its canister. The numbers, entered into the operational record with the precision that the archive requires, 3 days of sustained IRGC ballistic missile pressure on U.S. installations in Bahrain before the March 1st salvo, 6 inbound ballistic missiles in the primary March 1st attack package, 6 intercept attempts executed across 2 weapon systems, 6 warheads rendered inoperable, 5 by direct kill, 1 by proximity detonation, and subsequent SM-3 terminal intercept, 1 SM-3 round remaining in USS The Sullivans' viable intercept inventory at the moment of the decisive engagement. 12 seconds between tactical action officer authorization and launch. 12 seconds. 1 communications mast still standing. 63% command and control degradation avoided by a preemptive transition decision made 22 minutes before the first inbound track was designated. 1 telecommunications contractor arrested. 1 buried relay device recovered intact. 1 IRGC intelligence network exposed through signals exploitation of a 4-second burst transmission that had been dormant for 11 days. 11 days during which the relay device sat in a drainage channel under a highway median, waiting. The primary communications mast at Naval Support Activity Bahrain required structural inspection and minor blast deflector repair following the engagement. It was returned to full operational status at 7:15 a.m. on March 2, 2026. The 5th Fleet did not announce this. There was no press release. The air campaign continued. The watch officer who had marked the Category C perimeter sensor alert, as reviewed at 11:04 p.m., submitted an incident report detailing the event at 6 a.m. on March 2nd. The report noted the 1.3-second micro-vibration signature, its timestamp, and its correlation to the relay device excavation site. The report was classified, cross-referenced with the NCIS technical findings, and added to the evidentiary file supporting the contractor's prosecution. The watch officer had marked it reviewed because his training and his threshold settings told him it was not a threat. He was not wrong by the standards he had been given. The relay device had not been a threat at 11:04 p.m. It became 9 minutes later, when it transmitted. The standards were updated the following week. What the March 1st engagement at Bahrain demonstrated was not that the U.S. Navy's ballistic missile defense architecture is impenetrable. It demonstrated the opposite, that the architecture operates always at the margin. That 6 missiles, committed by a degraded but operationally capable adversary, produced 1 engagement that was decided by a single interceptor, authorized in 12 seconds, by 1 officer whose training had been specifically designed to make 12 seconds feel like enough time to make the right decision. There is no comfortable version of that margin. There is no version of that story in which the outcome is certain until it is already recorded. The Gulf does not grant certainty. It grants preparation. and the men and women who know how to spend those 12 seconds. Until the next record is written, the watch stands.